everyone. Um, I was supposed to be Emily Best, our founder and CEO of Seed and Spark, here to welcome our first or our second inclusive leadership interview. But Emily has young children and has taken on whatever the latest flu that they have. And her commitment to inclusive leadership is to model not working sick today. Well, I did have to convince her not to work sick today. So I am Chelsea Petty Dale and the sales marketing manager at Film Forward, and I'm excited to be here today to talk about inclusive leadership with Michael Baptiste. So building off the success of our flagship Behaviors and Belonging curriculum at Film Forward, we created an inclusive leadership curriculum that develops the 6 fundamental traits of inclusive leadership. Those are called the 6 C's: cognizance, curiosity, courage, commitment, cultural intelligence, and collaboration. To celebrate the launch of this new program, we're hosting a series of interviews with our favorite people leaders on how they've utilized the 6 C's in their journeys to leadership. Today, we're talking to Michael Baptiste, and our topic is commitment. And he knows something about commitment. Michael is the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Metro Atlanta Chamber, and he is responsible for the ATL Action for Racial Equity. It is part of his job to get business leaders to commit to bold action for racial equity in our region. We previously worked with Michael with Film Forward while he was at JustWorks, and are lucky to continue with his incredible guidance as an advisory board member at Film Forward. So Michael, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And Emily, definitely get well soon. Wish you were here. But I know I'm in good hands with Chelsea here. So happy to be here and share with you all.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be here with you too. So we're going to hop into the questions that we've prepared. So starting off with, tell us a little bit about your journey to leadership.
Yeah, so my journey to leadership is actually quite interesting. When I started my career, I never really saw myself doing leadership, right? I was one of those people. I just wanted to come in, be an individual contributor, do my work, and then go home. So I didn't have any commitment at that particular point, except just getting the work done. And so it wasn't until, and I started my career kind of in nonprofit and transitioned to corporate. It wasn't until I got to corporate and worked for a particular financial company where I saw we had a person of color, Black CEO. And that, as you know, in today's world, we definitely, I think, advanced over time, but we're still a small percentage of Black CEOs at certain companies. And so for me, that was very eye-opening. One is financial institution, one person of color in charge of things. It definitely gave me kind of like that aha moment. It's like, okay, it's not a unicorn. These do exist. Like we actually can, be, the head of everything in a particular company. And so for me, it was great to see that because it gave me hope that, if I do decide to go down that route, there's a possibility that I could at one point, be in a leadership team or be your CEO. I still didn't really have the desire to be a CEO of a company, but it definitely gave me hope and kind of an inspiration to, that could happen for me. And I think for me, that's something that I've kind of stuck with over the years because, as I left the organization and went to other companies, I didn't see the same diversity, right? And so it did kind of spark something in me from a challenging standpoint to say, how can I affect that, right? How can I change the dynamic of, the dynamic makeup of that particular leadership team where I'm at, or what can I do to kind of position myself to be a leader at some particular point in my career. So I think to me that was, I think, important for me. And I think it's important, particularly when you think about from a person of color perspective, is that when you kind of step into an organization, you want to be able to feel like you can thrive and strive and see an example of yourself in leadership. So for me, as I got later on in my career, and I'm kind of new to leadership from that degree, I would say I'm probably like 3 to 5 years into kind of the leadership realm of things with different roles that I've had. And so what I've tried to do, I think, over that time is, just be the best leader I can be and really taking a little bit from everyone, the good things and even the bad things, deciding not to do them, but really just good examples that I can kind of emulate and really create my own, leadership self, as I think about kind of my role in my career. So.
Definitely. And like being that trailblazer, being the person who says, okay, I don't see this representation and I want to be the one to create it. You might have had a model in the past, like that takes a lot of strength and commitment. So like what made you want to kind of, what was the like final deciding factor for you that like, I'm going to do the hard thing and be the one to set upon this path?
Yeah, I don't know if it was like one thing. I think throughout my career, even on certain teams and situations, I've been the one or one of few, right? I've either been the only male in certain situations, I've only been the only black person in certain situations. And so what I've tried to do is just model a good example of what I think I should be in those particular roles. And I really wanted to, I think in my thinking about when I think about my career, I think about, I've always been that person wanting to help others, right? And so, occasionally I would be that person to talk to younger employees about, hey, here's how you should navigate the ropes here, right? Here's some things you should be thinking about or be concerned about, or know just know about kind of where you're working at. And I think that in itself, I think has kind of propelled me over the years to kind of want to take on a more formal responsibility in those roles, and really just start to change the narrative, right? Change the dynamic
Hmm.
of where I'm at, and be that first person with the hopes that there's more to come behind me. And so I think that's how I've looked at it, is that if not me, then who, right? So it has to be somebody to
Yeah.
kind of take the first step. And then the hope is that you do a good enough job and be a good enough representation where the company realizes, like, we need more people like that, right? And not so much necessarily like me, but just more diversity within the room, right? Whether that's from a gender perspective, a race perspective, sexual orientation perspective, just having different perspectives in the room to make, to have more creativity, more innovation, and so forth.
Absolutely. I definitely relate to that, as like when I saw the first queer leader at a role that I was in before, I never thought I wanted to be a leader either. But seeing someone like me in that position and knowing like I had so much passion and compassion that I wanted to kind of bring to others. And I kind of fell into leadership. And I think that some of the best leaders, that happens to them, is they just have this passion, and it's not a passion to be the boss, but it's a passion
Yep.
to help others. So yeah, that's great.
Yep.
So what does a committed leader look like to you?
I think for me, a committed leader is someone who realizes that leadership is a privilege that's earned, not a right. It's definitely a service. It's about service, I think, first and foremost. So putting others' needs before your own. I think it's a desire to just become more connected, more committed, and more capable today than you were yesterday. And also, too, just a willingness to kind of learn continuously, and also willing to be taught. Because I think what makes the best leaders is surrounding those around you who, in some cases, may be smarter than you, or can fill the blind spots that you don't have. And I think that's what makes, I think, a committed leader is making sure those around them are set up for success. Because when they're set up for success, then you're set up for success, right? And when they look good, you look good. And so I think that's the key, is like, how do you surround yourself with the right resources and the right tools and the right people, to truly kind of commit yourself to the process of developing your team and leading your team in the right way.
And something that we see, and something that we talk about in our inclusive leadership curriculum, is how much resilience is also part of being a committed leader, and how you have to kind of just keep picking yourself back up. So, how has commitment and also that resilience played a role in your leadership career in particular?
Yes, I think for me, commitment has been important because it's allowed me to stay the course in the midst of adversity, right? Being able to kind of see the bigger picture and the long play, particularly for me, kind of determining, what that next stage or what that next career move might be for me. And like I said before, I think for me, it was always about, being committed to leaving something better than how I found it. I think that's always something how I kind of had a mindset of thinking about that. And for me, I think it's about also too, like I said earlier, I've had great leaders and I've had not so great leaders, and so I've learned to kind of pick things from the ones that were great, and also to not model behavior of things where I saw they weren't so great. But those are lessons learned, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't make those same mistakes, particularly that were made for me. And I never wanted to leave someone in a position that I was leading, felt that I wasn't doing my best to, evolve them or help them or motivate them and so forth. And so for me, I think that's the key, and from a resilience standpoint, I think it's really about you, you're human, right? And so you're gonna take a lick and you're gonna make mistakes, and your true leadership value comes when you're leading through those tough and challenging times, right? That's when you pretty much earn the respect of your team based on how you respond and how you navigate those troubling waters. And so the more you can kind of manage that and be honest with yourself. It's like, hey, we didn't get it right this time. What did we do wrong? How can we do better going forward? I think that's crucial in leadership. You're not perfect, and so the more you lead with a not perfect mindset, I think that helps you with your team and just being honest and genuine. I think that's also important too. Like, don't be afraid to admit when you're wrong. I think that's the key of a true leader. Being able to know when you made a mistake and can evolve from it and respond from it.
Absolutely. That's something we talked a lot about in our last talk with Aubrey about vulnerability and humility and how important those are in being a leader. So, kind of piggybacking off of that, what mistakes did you make along the way and how did you grow from them?
Yeah, for me, so what's interesting, it's funny question. So I think what I learned early on in my career is leading by example is not enough, right? So I have a military background, so a lot of times we'll tell, hey, we're just giving orders, we just follow them, and that's it. And I thought early on, like, hey, if I just lead by example, they will come, like, they will follow me, they will do, what I'm doing. And not saying you shouldn't do that, but that's not all, right? I think you have to lead based on who you're leading, right? Because everybody requires something different. It requires you to talk to them differently or manage them differently or motivate them differently. And so you got to be able to kind of adjust with who's in front of you versus kind of thinking everybody's just going to follow you by example. Now, like I said, you still want to model the good example and still model good behavior, but that can't be the end all be all with regards to how you lead and how you want people to follow you. And like I said, you have to build that relationship and partnership with them as well. It's not just by title. And I think early on I thought, hey, if I'm just a leader, they have to listen, right? They have to do what I say. And I learned that not also in leadership, but in parenting too. Like, they don't always listen to you because you're in charge. They don't always listen to you as well. And I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I'm learning that as well. It's like they don't always have to listen to exactly what you say. So leadership and parenting, I think that's a good
Yeah.
example to follow.
Yeah. They resist you, but they also do need you. And that's the similarity
Yes.
between both of
Yeah.
them too.
Exactly.
So speaking kind of on that, you said it's not just about modeling behavior. What's your advice for leaders for modeling commitment, but also what would you say is the step beyond that? What else should you do? Modeling that commitment. And how do you do that? And then what is the next step? How do you keep that going other than just modeling?
Yeah, I think it's like I said, it's relationship building, it's communication. I think those two are the key. I think in all that, I think you have to be transparent. You have to be willing to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, and be honest with them and yourselves. I think especially, I think in this generation that we're in, people want transparency, right? And they want to know, like, the truth, like what's going on, what's happened. No matter how you spin the story, they just want to know what the truth is and what the real is. And I think the more you can be honest and get genuine and forthcoming with the truth, I think that goes a long way with getting the respect and the just the overall kind of trust that you need to be the leader. People want to trust who they're following. And so I think that comes with, again, like I said, building that relationship, having transparent communication, and, just being honest and genuine and intentional about anything and everything that you do. I think that goes a long way. I think that's what I try to do as well, is just model those three things. in all that I do, particularly in the work perspective, when I'm thinking about my team and, how I want to be perceived and how I want them to even model for themselves. For me, when I think about that, how I lead, I'm not sure if everyone thinks like this. And, anyone who's worked for me, they'll tell you one of the first things I say to them when I've hired them is that, I'm positioning you to take my job at some point. Whether you want my job or not, but that's my goal, is to make sure that you have all the resources and tools to replace me one day. Should I decide to leave, or should you decide to get promoted or work beside me or go somewhere else? At least you can say the time you had with me was the most rewarding, the most challenging, but also the most things that you were able to pick up and learn and really take somewhere else and to apply. And so when you think back on this experience, all the things that you've learned from me, you can apply no matter where you go. So that's kind of how I have always tried to lead or manage people or motivate people who worked under me. So
That's a great way to lead, because so many managers fall into the trap of not wanting to pass on work, because they don't want to micromanage, or they don't want to,
mhm.
they struggle with delegating, and it ends
Mhm.
up where if they leave, everyone else is lost. And so
Right, all
being
that
able to
knowledge
set
goes
your
out the
leaders
door.
up, yeah, being able to set your leaders up so that they will have the same knowledge as you, and you're giving them all the tools. That's a great method. So sometimes as a leader, you might make a commitment and then realize that it's not working, or it was the wrong one. So how do you pivot in that situation?
I think you got to be honest with yourself, right? You got to be honest and say, we made the wrong choice, right? We made the wrong decision. We did this incorrectly. We made a mistake. I think the sooner you can acknowledge that, the sooner you can fix it, right? And there's a human nature in all that we do. Like, we're not going to make the right choice every single time. And so for me, what's the key to kind of, I think, mitigating that is having the right people around you, right? Because that'll help mitigate you making the wrong commitment or making the wrong choice when you have the right people in the room, or right people around you, right people on your team. And so you have to be able to kind of trust others for what you hired them for, right? Trust them to do what they do. Like, that's their specialty. I'm gonna go to you for that particular specialties because I know that's where your expertise is in. But you can't. I think you can't dance around it, right? You can't be afraid to take risks or make mistakes as well, because a lot of those times those are probably the most learning moments that you can have, or coaching moments that you can have. Whether it's you making a mistake or a team member, I think that's a good opportunity for a learning or a coaching moment, and not dwell in it, not fault anyone for it, or hold grudges about it. I think you just address it and pivot, and then make the correction that you need to make, and realize. And the hope is that you don't continuously make the same mistake, but realizing that we're all human and we all have that ability to get something wrong here every now and then. But the more you can get, I think, those around you. I think I don't know the right quote, and I might be butchering it, but they say, like, leaders, the best leaders hire those who are, I think I made it just earlier, either smarter than them or can cover their blind spots. So if they are not thinking or have that perspective, there's someone in the room that can check them. And the key thing with that is you being vulnerable enough, as we talked about earlier, to be checked, right? And say, hey, Michael, you know what? That's not really how we should be thinking about this. And be able to take that feedback from your team and kind of go vice versa. So that way, again, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to win, right? It's a team effort. And so, yeah, I may be the leader and, a lot of times maybe get the brunt of the acknowledgement, but also the brunt of the mistake as well. But we all succeed as a team. And so we want to make sure we're all on the same page and be able to kind of really have that authenticness to really check each other when we need to say, hey, that's not really how we should do this. And that's not how we're thinking. So I think that's important.
Absolutely. And I think being honest in those situations, and being able to have those vulnerable conversations, opens it up for others to have ideas and have
Mhm.
recommendations of how to fix it. And then, that's what the great thing about having a diverse team is, having diverse perspectives, and everyone's coming at it with different ideas and perspectives and viewpoints that can then open your eyes to something you might not have thought of. And being vulnerable allows that conversation to happen.
Yep.
Um, So, what do you think is the most important tenet of inclusive leadership?
I think for me, it's that emotional, cultural intelligence, that empathy. Um, I think you have to be able to, one, read the room, read your team, read the times that we're in. I think probably more so than ever as we think back to, from 2020 on to this point, like your work life and personal life in the worlds are like so like in collision with each other, and so a lot of times it's hard to show up to work not knowing what's happening in the world, right, or having that affect your day and affect how you show up. And so I think just being aware and just acknowledging the times that we're in, I think is important. It's unfortunate that things happen every day, and so can't address necessarily every single thing, but realizing in yourself and your team how they show up, right, and realizing that every day you're not going to be 100%. You may be 40% or 50%, and it's okay that you are 40, 50% that day. And I think that's important to realize as well. And then I think I do that for myself as well. Like people who work for me, my teams, I'll tell you, hey, today I'm 40%. I'm sorry, I got a lot going on today. Maybe some things going on at home and so forth. But I'm honest, right? And so today you're going to get my best 40% I can give you. And then tomorrow I'm probably going to be 100%. And tomorrow you're going to get the best 100% I can give you. So I think just being honest about um, where you are in that moment, where you are in that day. So I think to me that emotional and cultural intelligence, I think, is super important for any leader to be aware of, and to continuously learn about, because I think we're just in such interesting times right now that it's just hard to be. I think it'll be hard to be a leader not having that skill set.
Absolutely. I saw something online that was like, if you only have 40% that day and you give that whole 40%, you've given 100%. That
There
is
you go. There
everything
you
that you had to
go.
give. And so,
Yep.
you can't beat yourself up because you did everything that you could in that one moment. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, in your role galvanizing a community of leaders, what are some of the greatest challenges? It's one thing to be working with a team, but when you have a whole team of leaders, that's a different ballgame.
Yeah, so I think for me, I think you hit it right on the head. Like anytime you're trying to get everybody on the same page with one particular goal, I think it's going to be challenging. And you have to realize that somebody somewhere is going to have an issue with what you're doing. Like you're not going to please everybody. So take that in consideration. And then what I'm talking about is uncomfortable. So racial equity is not a fun topic to talk about for some people. And so, or to discuss or even rally around. And so for me, it's getting people to kind of step outside their comfort zone and explore, why this uncharted territory might be scary for them. And then building just that trust and empathy around bringing these different people together for a common goal. And so realizing that there's something bigger than you that we're trying to solve. It's bigger than the leaders that we're talking about. This is societal change that we're trying to make here. And so, getting them to see that big picture, I think sometimes can be challenging. I think their heart is in the right place and they want to do the right thing. It's just new and, like I said, uncharted waters. And so you don't know what you don't know. I think that's the unknown of it all. I think that's the part that gets scary. I think for some is that they don't know what they don't know. And the unknown, like I said, can just be scary when you're thinking about something that you've never done before. So,
Yeah, and being able to admit that you don't know something takes that
yep,
vulnerability, but that takes a lot of, psychological safety, feeling comfortable in your environment
exactly.
to be able to say, I don't understand this, but then you learn the
Yep,
most because there's probably other people in the room who also don't understand that, and you're opening up a conversation
exactly.
by admitting that. So, what is some advice that you have for leaders and some takeaways for our audience today?
I think one, be your own leader. So I think like I said, well, how I got to this spot is taking bits and pieces from everybody and creating just who I feel is the best leader that I can be. So that's the first thing. Be the best leader that you can be. One thing I try to kind of model, and sometimes I fail, but I always keep trying. I like to mention this book called The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. And the four agreements are: be impeccable with your word, Don't take anything personal. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. Whatever the best is for that day, always do your best. So that's one piece of advice. And another piece of advice, in just terms of engagement, particularly from a leadership perspective, I would say always lead with good intent. I truly believe that for the most part, we all, come from a good place, right? I don't think we really need to be malicious or anything like that. I think from the heart of hearts, we come from a good place. So I'll say lead with good intent until you're proven otherwise. Second, I would say embrace differences. So we all come from different backgrounds, different experiences. I think the more we can embrace that and acknowledge that and respect that, I think that goes a long way. Listen to understand. So I say this because I'm guilty of this myself. My wife will tell you sometimes that I'm quick to whatever, say my part and not hear her part. And so just being able to sit in the moment and just listen to whoever you're talking to and be in the moment, be present, I think that goes a long way. And then meet people where they are. I think you gotta just wipe away the other stuff or the history there or the past and so forth, and just really be in the moment and meet people where they're at that particular moment, and kind of continue and really be able to kind of grow and develop from that point. And then lastly, I would just say be uncomfortable, be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Um, the more you can step outside of your comfort zone, step out of kind of your normalcies, I think that really is where the growth and development happens, right? Where you really get to see yourself be challenged in new environments, new spaces, and new entities. That's where you really see yourself kind of blossom and really take ownership and take charge and really grow and develop. So I think being comfortable with the uncomfortable, I think is super important.
Absolutely. Well, that's all of our questions. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything you want to shout out at the end, Michael?
I mean, I would just say again, thank you for the opportunity. I
Of
think this is
course.
a great series about leadership. I think leadership comes in many, many facets and forms. And so I think it's really important to, like I said, identify what one kind of leader you want to have, or the leader kind of type of leader that you want to be. And I think that's going to drive kind of how you navigate your career, or even navigate others managing you, and what works best for you. And so I think the more you can be in tune with those two things, I think that'll go a long way with your development, your growth, and you being a leader one day as well. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for your time and your incredible wisdom. And thank you to everyone who's joining us online. We're going to be hosting more interviews, so keep an eye out on our LinkedIn. And thanks to the whole Seed and Spark team and everyone watching. And thank you so much, Michael. Have a good day.
thank you as well. Thank you. Bye.